Welcome to the Rusted Garden. It's been 21 days since the second part of this video series on growing 1 to 2 pound tomatoes. So in that 3-week period, things have been really taking off. The tomatoes are doing really well, but you can see that they're getting oversized. I had a drop in the 6-foot posts. They're one inch by 1 inch posts you can get at Home Depot. They're about $3 or $4, but they're 8 feet tall. They're really nice for growing these large indeterminate varieties. So I need to tie the tomatoes to the stakes, get that set up, prune out the bottoms. I want a 12-inch gap down there, and you're going to see on some of the leaves what look like a terrible disease. That's nothing to worry about. That's just happening from the heat. We're going to take care of that. I'll talk more about what that yellowing is. Here's the 4th one in the series, and again you can see that that needs to be tied to the stake. So let me tie those up, take care of that. Then I'm also going to talk about side dressing, fertilizing, blossom end rot, and just getting these ready for the 3rd part of the video. So the first thing I did was tie the vines to the stakes, but before you would do that, since we needed the bigger post, just tie down the smaller post in a couple places right till the main one, and then go ahead and tie your tomato up. And the way that you do it is now you're going to be wrapping your twine around the stem that you want to secure, and it will be going around both posts. And this just makes just a nice sturdy way to kind of really guide your tomato up the stake. I also took the bottom leaves off. I took off all the yellow leaves, and we'll get to them in a second. Hey, look at this. You can see a caterpillar crawling right into the tomato. So as you're doing stuff like this, make sure you check and remove anything that's going to be a problem, and we will just have to smash that caterpillar. All right, taken care of. So we take care of the bottom leaves. They were starting to yellow. We'll talk about that in a second. And I really want to create maybe about a foot space between the mulch and the bottom leaves, because that's how soil-borne diseases can splash up. We're also going to get to the suckers that are in the joints here in a second. And also you can see in some places the tomatoes are coming out. If you wanted to, you could let this grow, angle it away, and you'll have a whole other production stem starting. That's what happens with all the suckers. They just become production stems. But because we're trying to grow to size, we just want to be careful we don't have too much going on, because we want the energy to get to the tomatoes. There's a perfect tomato getting ready to grow to that 2-pound size. So these are the leaves that I took off the bottom of the tomato plants. Also pulled out my lettuce. It's bitter now. But you want the gap of about 12 inches between the mulch, the ground, and the bottom leaves of the tomato, so air circulates through there and it creates that disease barrier I talked about. So these are the piles that came off of each plant. This one was much taller, so a lot more leaves came off the bottom. You don't want to do this too quickly. You don't want to take away the leaves before the plant is really growing upward. And you can see the yellow. Now let me talk to you about that. These aren't diseases to worry about. This is a nutritional issue, and if you are feeding your plant regularly, watering it regularly, don't worry about it. We also had a couple days of 95-degree weather. The bottom leaves are the leaves that are going to die off first when the plant is in stress or in distress. And it always doesn't mean, it's not always a sign that you have diseases or problems. For instance, when you look at this and you show this online, people are going to start screaming blight, all kinds of different things. Blight doesn't look like this. Whenever you have just a solid brown patch and yellow around here, this is just die-off. It can be for 100 different reasons that you don't need to worry about. This is nutritional. If you come over here, you look at this one and someone's going to say, oh no, you have blight. Again, it's not blight. Blight is when the brown space in here has concentric rings. So it's circles within circles within circles of browning rings with a yellow halo around it. That's a disease, and that's something to worry about. This is just all kinds of stuff going on with this plant, with these plants, because I had a lot of hot weather, some water issues here, but everything is going to be perfectly fine. So don't panic if the leaves are yellow. Just take them off from the bottom. Now, that being said, it's June 18th, and I know that early blight is on its way to Maryland. It always comes. We also get leaf spot, but I seem to manage through that time. And now I'm doing my preventive sprays. Every week, every 10 days, this is getting a spray of baking soda and aspirin. I'll link a video to talk about the aspirin, but the aspirin tricks the plant into thinking that it's actually being attacked. It mimics a hormone, a natural hormone, and it beefs up its defenses, so to speak. So I'm going to do that today. You know what, and I'll show you the spray mix in this video too. But again, preventive spraying is the best way to take care of your plants. Don't start spraying when it shows, because when it shows, it's too late. Aspirin doesn't kill off the disease. Baking soda doesn't typically kill off the disease, but it prevents it from setting in if you do it regularly. Now, these plants are looking really, really healthy, different sizes, and what I haven't done yet is I haven't gotten in there and pruned them yet. Removing suckers, like here's a sucker right in the joint. And you have to make a decision now. If you want to go for that 3 pound, 4 pound, 5 pound huge tomato, then we're going to have to start removing flowers, we're going to have to start removing suckers, and just concentrate on one tomato being there, getting all the energy of the leaves. And that means you'd have to take off these flower clusters up there. I don't want to do that this year. I thought maybe I'd try and go for a record tomato. I want to get a couple big ones, 2 pounds, but I also just don't want 3 tomatoes on each plant. So we're going to prune these. I'm going to show you how I do it. This one already has 2 stems starting. I'm going to probably keep this at 2. And let's just get started with that. Pruning is not a, what do I want to say? It's more of an art. You can do it however the hell you want, to be honest with you. Just don't overdo it. There's nothing specific. You don't have to do it exactly the same way for every plant. Just gently take care of it, remove some of the suckers, and I'll show you how I do mine. All right, so this is my mortgage lifter, and first thing, right down here we have another whole tomato growing out of here. Cut that off. Let's see, I don't want to damage the main stem. Remove that. Coming out of here, this was a leaf that was coming out. The leaf would have been coming out just like this, and right in between the leaf and the stem is where a sucker grows. We're going to remove that too. We've got the main tomato that of course we're going to keep and protect, and I'm going to try and get this one to a couple pounds. So I'm going to prune this one a little more heavily than the rest of them. The rest of them I want more 1 pound, 2 pound tomatoes. This one, let's go for size. So here's another place where the leaf would have came out. This is a sucker that will turn into a full production stem. We're going to remove that too. And then the final one we're going to remove for now is right here. That's another sucker. So we're going to let the energy of this plant go to this tomato, and I am going to, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to let this go. We'll let this grow for a little bit, and in the next video I'll show you what I do to that one. All right, let's go over to the next tomato. So this is my German pink Belgium. 1 tomato setting up, and if we were going for a record tomato, we would go up this tomato, remove these flower clusters up here, and just let the energy of the plant go to that 1 tomato. And I'm almost tempted to do that, but I'd rather get more tomatoes than 1 big tomato. And plus I've got those squirrels in my yard, and I'm really afraid that I'm going to grow something large and the squirrel's going to come and just chew it up and destroy the tomato. So looking into this, little tiny sucker starting there. Let's remove that. Here's a leaf, the main stem. This is a sucker that if you let it go, it turns into a production stem where you'll get a leaf followed by a cluster of flowers. We're going to let that one grow. So that's a second stem. There's the main stem. So that's 2 production stems. Over here is another sucker. There's the leaf, the main stem. We're going to remove that one because I don't want that many vines growing. Still want to get big tomatoes. So we're going to remove that. That will reduce some of the flowers that are coming through. Then we start going up here, right in this joint. We got a leaf, a stem, flowers. That's a sucker. We're going to break that out. Coming over to this one. Here's the stem, the leaf right, the leaf right there, and this is another sucker right in there. So we got leaf, stem, and right there's the sucker. We're going to break that out. That won't snap. Don't pull it. Let's just get the scissors in there and cut that out. Coming on this side, another leaf, the stem right there, and this is a sucker. We're going to remove that one. And that's cleaned this plant up, you know, for at least for another week. So I've got a flower cluster down there, main tomato. Flower cluster right in there. Coming up top, another flower cluster, and then more up here. And we'll keep training this tomato up the stake. So this is my Aussie heirloom. I really like this plant. I have it growing in 2 different places. And we're going to start right at the bottom, remove that. As we come up the stem, we see a tomato growing right there, cluster of flowers, another tomato right in there, and right in again, stem, leaf, sucker. We're going to remove that one. And I'm taking that one out just because I want the air circulation to come through. And then coming up here, it gets a little bit confusing. So we have a leaf right here, a main stem, this is a sucker, and that's just too many production vines all in one place. So that's why I'm cutting this one off. Oh, hard to do left-handed. So we'll remove that. And then you continue up the stem, another leaf. Here's another sucker, which I'm actually going to leave. And I'm going to leave this one a little bit dense up here. I'm going to experiment more with it. Actually 2 years ago, I feel like I over pruned the Aussie. So part of pruning is really understanding the tomato variety you're growing. So I'm going to let this go a little bit more, see what happens. I want a lot of flower clusters, and if I only get, 11 ounce, 12 ounce tomatoes, that's okay. I will get some 1 pounders in there and probably some 2 pounders. But this plant's growing really well. I don't want to over prune it. So we've got the flower cluster and tomatoes right there. We got some right back in there. Coming up, more flower clusters, some more up here, and we're going to let this grow more. And again, pruning is an art. It's not a set way to do anything. So the last variety is the delicious, and you can see a tomato growing right in there. And again, each tomato has a tomato growing, and it's low on the plant because it was the first flowers to really come on the plant. And you would remove the rest of these flowers if you really wanted to go for a world record tomato. And I'm going to try it with one plant, but the rest I want more tomatoes, and I want, one tomato that gets really, really large. Now what's kind of weird about this one is we have the single stem coming up, and then it branches off here. I took off the leaf right there. So this is a production stem, and you can see the flowers right by my thumb. So this will probably have to get removed. I'll remove that later, maybe next week. As we continue up the stem, we got a leaf and another sucker or production stem. That's starting to get flowers. Keep going, another leaf, main stem, another production stem, and then in that joint of that stem is another sucker. I'm going to remove that one. And then we keep working our way up. The main stem, you see right here is the main stem, a leaf coming out. Let me move this. The leaf coming out right there, main stem right here, another sucker, and I'm going to try and break that. We're going to take that one off. And then we're going to let it continue to grow up here. I'm not going to take any more off right now, but lots of flowers on there. And you're really pruning to help manage the size of the plant, let airflow go through, and it really depends on what you want to do. No secret set way to do it perfectly every time, but this is just the way to manage the plant, and I recommend be creative. Try some different things with different tomatoes. All right, let's get to the side dressing. I told you I would show you what I do with that. The plants have really grown well over the last 3 weeks, and I know I'm sort of ambivalent. Like, I'm thinking maybe I should go to a single stem like I talked about in the last video and try and go for a record-setting tomato. But I think I'm going to stick with the theme of the video and just show you how to prune how I am so that we get a lot of 1 and 2 pound tomatoes. So at this point, the tomatoes have set their first fruit, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about that. That's when a lot of people will do their first side dressing. So it's just 1 or 2 tablespoons, and just sprinkle 1 or 2 tablespoons around the base of your plant. Try and stay about 4 inches away from the tomato, and that's just an organic fertilizer. Try and stay around the 5-5-5. Remember, we're just going slow and low, and a nice a slow continual feeding for the plants, and just regular watering. That's the most important thing you can do. The other thing is we want to worry about blossom end rot. Now, blossom end rot can occur because your soil doesn't have calcium or your plants can't access the calcium. So one thing you do, again, about 2 tablespoons of lime, and just sprinkle it around your plant. You can also use gypsum, but this is going to bring calcium. Consistent watering is the key to prevent blossom end rot. These are tomatoes that are planted in the ground, so calcium is there. When we're working with container tomatoes, sometimes it's a little bit of an issue of the calcium actually not being there. Hope that makes sense. Consistent watering one treatment of lime, we don't need to worry about blossom end rot here. So here's my preventive spray. It's 1 tablespoon of baking soda in a gallon of water. Don't spray when it's 90 degrees or hotter, spray in the evening. Also test spray any new sprays you have. You don't want to damage your plant. Also 325 milligrams of aspirin are mixed in, dissolved into this 1 gallon. And all I do for my prevention spray is soak the leaves down, just like that. Make sure you get the undersides. And I do this every 10 to 14 days as prevention. And this should take care of the plants until video number 4. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please check out my garden shop at www.therustedgarden.com. And to grow 1 pound, 2 pound tomatoes, there's really 3 keys. Slow and low fertilizing. Make sure you get varieties that produce big tomatoes. And make sure you're consistent with the watering. One of the things that damage a lot of plants is people don't water regularly enough. The roots dry out and the plants suffer. Again, thanks for watching my videos, and I'll see you next time.